I like that.
The same applies to Rwanda, Burundi. So what are we federating?
Whether rats from another country can be, I mean, somebody must be there to hold everybody accountable.
But at the moment, we would rather deal with what we have, make it right.
First of all, we as elites of Uganda, we have made Museveni the issue. I can tell Museveni is not the problem of Uganda. The problems of Uganda are much deeper. We can change the next 20 presidents and we'll still be this roundabout.
Deeply incisive.
The different political forces that we have in the country, in the country, we don't seem to really have achieved that in the country. We don't seem to really have achieved that minimum political consensus over certain things.
Authentically symbolic and insightful. Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odongtho. All on your public broadcaster, UBC, Inspiring Uganda.
A very warm welcome and a happy new year to all of you out there, to the panel here. And we thank God for starting the year so far well, of course, with lots of challenges. The challenge of COVID still remains with us. There is a heavy bug that has hit almost the entire country. Everybody is either coughing or, or having some flu or headache, but we thank God that we are still surviving. But this type of things must continue, and welcome therefore to back to Behind the Headlines, the first show in the year 2022. Today, Wednesday, the 5th of January of that year. We are going to be looking at sustainable economic recovery amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. And the president or government has already declared that the public life will be opened next week. The economy must be reopened, come what may, vaccinated or not vaccinated, as he said. And to discuss all that, we have the Honorable Minister Henry Musasizi. He is Rubanda County East MP. He is Minister of State in charge of general duties in the Ministry of Finance and Planning. Honorable, you're most welcome back from Kavale. You told me you were coming all the way from there, and we appreciate you to be here. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Charles, and good evening to viewers. I'm glad to be hosted on the first show of the year.
Thank you very much. Next to him, let me start on the left to him, is Honorable Paul Omara, who is MP for Otuke County, and he sits on the Budget Committee of Parliament of Uganda. Honorable, you're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Charles and the viewers.
Next to Honorable Omara is Mr. Stephen Asimwe. Stephen Asimwe is the new Executive Director of the Private Sector Foundation Uganda. Stephen, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Charles, and Happy New Year to the viewers, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Good, and just next to me, on my left, is Councillor Sarah Birete, who is the Executive Director of the Center for Constitutional Governance. Sarah, you're most welcome back to the show for the new year.
Thank you, Charles, and Happy New Year to all the viewers.
And finally, we have the Honorable Wonkom, or Chairman, but former one, currently MP for Laibi Bardege in Gulu City, the Honorable Ojara Mapenduzi. You're most welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much,
and
Charles.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and to all the viewers.
Thank you very much. Before we start the show, I just want to play some few clips for about a minute or less than that to usher us into the discussion.
We now intend to fully reopen the economy as well as educational and social activities in some staggered manner. The transport sector, which has been operating at 50%, will be opened fully, but with the necessary SOPs, such as the wearing of masks, full vaccination by both the crew of the public service vehicle and the travelers.
We were working very well. We were not ending at exactly 7. After opening, we will be ending at maybe at 9, 10.
He did good. People have been yearning for that, and they are now okay. And I think it's good because according to what you see, people have been traveling very few in a bus or in a taxi, whereby they have been charged highly, exorbitantly.
Very much for that snippet. Let me start with the Honorable Minister. The government is ready to reopen. Is this going to inject life in the economy?
Yes, thank you very much, Charles. We've come from far since the COVID pandemic hit us and the world. We've seen a downturn of so many things, and we have done a lot of sacrifices as far as economic management is concerned. We have seen a number of challenges in terms of expenditure pressures on the budget and other things. We have seen some sectors of the economy completely shutting down, education, entertainment, etc., etc. And the pronouncement by the president on 31st was definitely good news for the people of Uganda and also for the economy. I want to say that whereas we had a negative impact, the Ugandan economy remained resilient. Before the pandemic, the projected GDP growth rate was over 6%, and when the pandemic hit us, we declined to 3%, whereas other economies went into negatives. Ours remained a little bit into positives, and that was around 2020 when the pandemic hit us. Ever since, we have seen positive results. Like now, we, by close of financial year 2020-2021, we closed at 3.4% growth rate. And this year, we expect to close at 3.8. So what does this mean? This means that even when we have had challenges, our economy has continued to remain stable. With the opening up the economy fully, we will see definitely a number of all sectors opening up, and this will lead to further significant growth. And in a few months or years to come, we will see our growth of over 6% being recovered. Okay. And to us, this is really good news.
Paul, you are an MP and therefore represents people, a significant size of people, but also broadly the Ugandan local person. When Honorable talks of that significant growth, you were a banker, and bankers like talking about money in the pocket, money in the hand, liquidity. Do you think that Ugandans are likely to recover as Honorable Musasizi projects, in the near future as is thought?
Thank you very much, Charles.
And what are those signs?
Yes, thank you very much, Charles. I think let's put the status of our economy into perspective. And I agree totally with the initial statements made by the minister regarding what happened to our economy. Now, Charles, the COVID-19 and the restrictive measures that were instituted by the president to really curb the spread of the virus in the initial stages of 2020 had really a knock-off effect, actually, on the economy. For example, as the minister stated, the figures for 2020, the real GDP growth was actually much lower than 3%. It was only in 2021 when the real GDP got to 3%, which in real sense, if you consider the other economies, we did well, because other economies went below zero into negative growth. But
which other?
Especially European countries, normally, they go into negative. So the impact was mainly in the manufacturing sector, the retail and wholesale sector, and including schools, by the way, the service sector like schools. And Charles, what happened, which the viewers must appreciate, is that because of that, many of these service sector players and manufacturing entities had to downsize in order to remain afloat. So we actually offloaded into the unemployment levels which are already there. You know that the youth unemployment level is at 68%. So if those who had jobs were now again offloaded because the private sector had to remain afloat, it means actually that the impact on the economy was quite devastating. Now, so for us to bounce back, and let me add and say this, the central bank, in order to really keep some resilience within the economy, in the month of April, they reduced the CBR to 8%. And then again, consequently, in June, reduced it to 7%. That was basically to help increase the private sector credit, which actually grew minimally, because you see, if you are a private sector player...
Honorable, you need to be speaking the language of the person out there. When you say the CBR, the person out there may say, what is this?
Okay, it's the central
and what
bank,
does it mean?
It's the central bank rate.
Yes.
It's the rate at which the central bank lends to commercial bank.
Yes.
So now the central bank reduced that rate from a much higher figure, 9, 8 to 7%.
True.
And the intention was to really kind of stimulate the economy, help the commercial banks to lend at a much lower rate. But that had some small effect. The private sector credit grew only by 8%. In the previous years, it was even at 15%. So that also made sure that the economy remained somehow muted in terms of its growth. And of course, my friend on the right here, the Honorable Minister, they also put a stimulus package. They provided some funding to UDB to a tune of over 500 billion shillings, and then to MSC, Microfinance Support Center, to about 70 to 100 billion. Now, that was also to make sure that the private sector has easy access to long-term credit and also affordable credit, which was really a good move. But I would rather say that in the big picture, it could not help as much, because now the guys who had already borrowed, whose businesses were caught in the midst of this COVID, started to foreclose. You might have read recently where a case was taken to the president, when banks now are moving to foreclose, that, you know, please help us not for assets to be taken. So banks tried through the central bank to allow the private sector to restructure, for banks to restructure loans, again, with an extension of 6 months, which was a good thing. But that did not have a freeze on interest. It's only amount of flexibility allowing you more time to pay. So what I see from a banking perspective is that the impact on our non-performance loans has been quite bad, because previously our NPL ratio was 3.8%. It has now moved to 6%. That is at the industry level.
And NPL means non-performing loans.
Non-performing loans, yes.
Yeah.
It's now moved far at 6%. So which means many sectors, players have not been able to pay.
Yeah.
Have not been able to pay. So this thing actually requires a robust thinking, collaboration, working with the central bank, working with the Ministry of Finance to making sure that we provide some kind of a stimulus package. The last time I had my friend...
Can you first leave it at that,
yeah.
where you say
yeah.
what is required is a kind of robust thinking, collaboration.
Yeah. Yes.
And I want to first bring at this point the man who is in charge of the private sector as we talk. We will be coming back to the quality of that proposal,
yeah.
and go in depth, because that's what has brought us here. But Stephen, as a private sector, do you have a lot of prospect? Do you have a lot of hope that the full opening of the economy, with what government has put in place so far, even the release of the stimulus packages, are something that we need to really be happy about? Can it help?
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles. And that's a pertinent question. And a lot of the private sector are asking that fundamental question in regards to the opening of the economy. Clearly, like the Minister and Honorable Mara have said, these last 2 years have been very bad. The Private Sector Foundation, which I represent, has 12 sectors: agriculture, trade, manufacturing, ICT, tourism, oil and gas, professional services, logistics, construction, health and education, and recently we started the creative arts. This was a huge hit on the private sector, like everybody has said. The PSFU, as part of our mandate, among other things helping with policy and advocacy, we also conduct evidence-based research. So we conducted, every 6 months we conduct what we know, we call the PSFU Business Barometer, which basically we understudy all the sectors, we reach out to our people, we ask the frequently asked questions, we go through almost a pulse check on what is happening. And our evidence has shown that we've been hit by over 75% in all ways, in terms of resources.
Each of these sectors?
It's been hit so badly, some very, very badly. The private sector and government are one and the same. We are one economy, we are the same people. So we cannot shy away from working together. Everything has to be win-win. But what is very clear is that when we did the barometer in the last 1 year, we actually found that the 71.2% of our business people at all levels, whether large, medium, small, or micro, were really affected by the pandemic. And not just hit financially and in terms of business, but even in terms of the human resource. I mean, I'm a clear representative of an institution which lost its executive director. My senior colleague passed as a result of this, and many of our people really passed. So the impact was not just the economic element also, but even at the human resource level. Many, of course, institutions, as you all know, many companies have been forced to close, others have frozen, assets have been taken over. And so right now, we have come to the table with government. And Honorable Musasizi knows this when he was in the former parliament. We used to come at his department to engage at the policy level. So I must say that, for instance, the biggest challenge, of course, was the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on everything. The second one, according to our barometer, are the challenges inadvertently caused by the economy, but also the fact that the taxes have been very heavy. In respect to having a challenging business, the government still has to pick the taxes from the people, and it has been a challenge. The third issue is, as an impact of the challenges of the economy, you have low local purchasing power. People are poor, so they can't buy. So you have goods stocked, but very few buyers as a result of lack of income, supply chain issues. Then, of course, the issue of credit. Now, what is very interesting, Charles and viewers, is the fact that at PSFU, some of our members are the Bankers Association. They are lenders. But the biggest consortium of the private sector are borrowers. So on the one hand, you have people failing to pay money. But remember, banks are a business.
Yeah.
They have invested their money, which is, by the way, owned by the private sector. So even banks have been non-performing as a result of the challenges that have come. So it's a two-race horse in that challenge. And then, of course...
But something we need to first understand very quickly.
Yes.
There was a report that actually during the COVID pandemic, there was more deposits made, and that was from Bank of Uganda. And people have been asking, why that, irony of sorts? Where are they getting the money? The deposits were bigger than before.
Maybe I can answer that.
Please do.
You see, when you cannot deploy funds, for example, as a business person, let's talk about somebody who was in Chikugo, and you were importing items from China, and then there's a global lockdown. So on the other side, people are in their houses. Here, you are in your homes. So you've sold the commodities. So the only thing you can do is that you put the money in the bank. Oh. And you're not going to take that money and put it somewhere else. So that's why now all these monies that were moving up and down eventually settled down in the banks.
Okay.
So there was less transactions, really.
Interesting. Yes, Stephen. Yeah. Sorry for interrupting you. We needed to understand that contradiction.
That's a good clarification. So you have that problem of non-performing loans, but also your non-performing banking performance also, because they are not able to collect the money because of non-performing, and yet they have shareholders, So then, of course, you had the issue of the high cost of materials, lack of movement. So it really, really brought pressure on the private sector. Now, what is the way forward? And probably this is something we're looking forward to. You have a night economy, which is non-performing, non-responsive. It's typically stuck in the freezer. So for us at private sector, we are suggesting, and we thank the President for giving us the green light and positively indicating the opening of the economy. We have 15 million young people who have not gone to school. That's an economy. Food, logistics, staff, it's a whole economy. So the fact that this economy is going to open, in our view, means that the wheels are going to start to move. And moving means that one by one, like how a train begins to start to move and it gains momentum, for us is very, very positive. What we are basically saying is let's come to the table and get that critical oil that will make the wheels move. And I think Honorable Musazi and Honorable Omara talked about it, the need for a Marshall Plan. In 1945, after the World War, Europe and America were very clear. They put together a stimulus package large enough to get businesses moving. And inadvertently, this will start to make all these factors of production, income, expenditure, credit, bring these stimulus packages that are going to ensure that things happen. But secondly, some policy interventions that are win-win, and we've discussed this severally, which will then at least guarantee some level of movement, people getting back to their jobs, expenditure beginning to move, things like tourism. I headed the tourism board a few years ago.
Yeah.
Up till 2019, we had 1.7 million visitors coming into the country. That entire portfolio has been frozen. So we believe very strongly that with the opening of the economy, these wheels will start to move, and with more discussions, more policy interventions, and more stimulus packages, we're going to see a much better and robust economy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me come to Honorable Mapenduzi. We still have COVID, no doubt, and we are going to open. And there are fears. Stephen has called it the wheels beginning to move. But that wheel, at what speed can it move, you know, in real terms, from Monday, especially when schools are coming back to school? We know the kind of mess when schools were closed because of accelerated infections. What happened, the madness that went on, and of course it increased the rate of infection. Do you think that the reopening is going to cause more problem for the economy? Is it going to cause more problem for our social life? Is it a risk to the lives of especially the vulnerable? What's your take about it and this so-called staggered reopening?
You know, Charles, just like the gentleman who spoke before put it, the 2 years past have given us a lot to learn. And I want to believe that the experiences will help, especially government and every player, to get to understand that we are in an environment that appears to be very unpredictable. And so everything will have to rotate around how effectively we plan for the future and how we are going to use those experiences to project, to see how we avoid a repeat of some of the things we have had. Today, Charles, I was reading, you know, social media today. I was reading a story where it's being reported that another COVID-19 variant was confirmed another one. Actually, another one in France.
Another one they're talking about.
In France, and it's reported that a traveler from Cameroon got to France and it was tested and found to be having this new variant, which seems to be having I would call it higher number of mutations, and rated at 46, and the talk is that this seems to be more infectious. So today, another a new variant is being talked about. Just a few days ago, there was also another variant. Is it Florona? Reported in Israel, and then later on Brazil and a few countries. That means...
But do you think that should now be a worry for us?
No, not necessarily.
Or that should now be one of the things you are talking about,
not
that
necessarily.
We should be planning ahead.
Exactly. So talking about these new variants being, reported and all that, as a country, we should begin to prepare the more. How much are we going to put in terms of making sure that we meet the vaccination goals? Because the scientists have proven that vaccination helps. Now, meaning, as the economy is reopening, we need to do a lot more to make sure that we vaccinate the population to make sure that even when the situation begins to get bad again, we are still in that environment where it's manageable and we don't go back to 2020 or the second, what we experienced during the second wave. So for me, reopening the economy is a good idea. And this is something everyone wanted. But as we reopen the economy, it should not just be about getting excited. It should not be about celebration. It should be reopening the economy, but everyone taking that responsibility and knowing that COVID is going to continue to exist, and we are likely to have new and more variants, but that we should not be taken back to the kind of lockdown period, the terrible experiences and the challenges and businesses collapsing. And so for me, it should be about how are we going to use the experiences we have been through to plan effectively and make sure the economy continues to grow. There are reports. I'll tell you about the latest World Bank economic analysis for Uganda. It shows that the economy is emerging. But of course, the report also says there are a number of factors that have continued to undermine the economy, including there's so much pressure on natural resources. Because we know when small businesses close and all that, majority of our people resorted to agriculture. That put a big burden on our natural resources. So there is a call for a greener and resilient growth, economic growth to reduce vulnerabilities on, to look at how to reduce the level of vulnerabilities, but also the level of poverty. Okay. And the other thing that is very important, I think just as the Honorable Minister put it, from what we have learned, I think government now needs to, first of all, learn to accept that it should not be business as usual. This mentality where we want to behave like firefighters. We wait for things to happen and we run around. That should cease. We should be more organized. Secondly, we have also learned that things have been tough and it's likely to continue being tough. And so government needs to do a lot more in doing more, using less. That should include beginning to very toughly, getting tough on wasteful expenditures, on the things that the chronic cases of abuse of funds, public funds and corruption and unnecessary spending. And the Honorable Minister knows what we have gone through, cutting budgets and, somebody was saying cutting budgets.
I thought you were going to say the Honorable Minister knows about wasteful expenditures.
No, I know that's
the joke.
He's a fine gentleman in his field. I appreciate him for that. So,
no, thanks.
So I definitely believe that using the experiences, we can do better.
Okay.
We can begin to look at how much impact the situation has had and how we begin to inject a lot more resources to address or to begin to revive the areas that have been affected the more, but also planning. And the private sector needs to pick a big lesson from what has happened. Just as Ladiro Mara put it, when the lockdown came, a lot of the things we use in this country are imported, mostly from China and elsewhere. The doors got closed. We couldn't go anywhere. So what are we going to do in future when we have a similar situation? The private sector and government and every player needs to begin to think that how are we going to survive as a country when we have a repeat of what we have had? So how do we then begin to put resources to begin to address some of those challenges? Do we have to continue relying on China? Do we have to continue relying on other countries? And what happens in an event that there is another total lockdown for two more years? We cannot predict the future.
Or can we put the industries within these 5-10 years in order to?
Well, every journey starts with a step.
Okay.
I think as long as we have the commitment and that goodwill, and as long as we have people who are determined to solve problems using their experiences, we can achieve that.
Okay, thanks. Sarah, we are talking about the economy getting revived, and we are talking about the private sector role, the government role, and then the economy that has been hit badly by COVID that still exists. Do you think, what do you think in your view are the areas that need to be touched by government, by private sector in order to get to that intersecting point where then the growth starts to unfold?
Yeah, first of all, sustainable economic recovery requires effective containment of the pandemic. Uganda has done fairly. It's difficult to rate given the extended lockdown, but in terms of, although our death rates are high, our death rates are about 2.2%, which are high compared to death rates in the other countries. But in terms of containing the spread of the pandemic, because of long spells of lockdown, there has been some level of containment. In terms of vaccination, today's data, I think the doses given about 9.76 million, but the fully vaccinated people are still 1.5 million, which is 3% of the population. Still very, very low. We concluded last year with the strike by the medical personnel amidst the pandemic. So you can only contain a health pandemic with an effective infrastructure, which I don't see in place. I know there has been improvements. We also faced the challenge of abuses of COVID funds and preparation that was never done. Even at the time where we closed schools, there was a crisis of lack of surveillance centers for COVID, yet Parliament had provided funds, and we are going into opening of schools. I do not know whether we have these surveillance centers in place. So our measures for containing the pandemic beyond lockdown, beyond curfew, are shaky in terms of preparation. And that's a big problem. COVID is here with us. I think we should be planning for 5 to 10 years of a pandemic. Even if you want to lock down, even if you want to use curfew, instead of doing the software preparation that is required, is it sustainable? We've locked down sectors like entertainment industry for 2 years. We've taken all those people out of jobs, out of livelihood with no provision. And we went on with our lives without bothering on how they were surviving. We locked down people who feed from the night economy, 2 years. And we seemed so comfortable with the curfew, with the lockdown of these sectors, instead of building an effective health infrastructure with the personnel who are properly remunerated. Of course, we saw that crisis, as I've already mentioned. This is what we are failing to do as a country. COVID is not going away tomorrow. We are going to open schools amidst the third wave of Omicron, which is in almost every family. Every family has elements of flu, elements of cough, and whoever is testing positive. But because our testing is also very costly, so many people do not test because it is a luxury. Testing is a luxury. How many people can afford 200,000 for PCR when that 200,000 can feed your family for a month? So this is the challenge we are battling with as a people. So when we are opening the economy, yes, it is long overdue. And we were advocating for, breaks. When the virus goes down, open. When the virus infections go up, close. That's what many countries have been doing. Monitor the spread, Open accordingly. When it is too risky, close, put measures. But we put draconian measures and went sleep. In the last 2 months of last year, our positivity rate was less than 1%. One wonders the logic why we did not send children to school for 2 months, where our positivity rate was less than 1%, and we are sending our children to school when our positivity rate is 23%. What is the logic? So we need to be flexible to the extent that the virus is down, open. The virus infections are up, close, minimize, because you must save lives, livelihoods, as well as don't clog the lives of people. To me, this is the missing link in our approaches. When it comes to economies that were that contracted, of course, we had a contraction with economic growth in the first year of 1.1%, and then 3.2% in the last year, where there was an improvement. We had 10%, according to the Bank of Uganda State of the Economy report as per June 2021. 10% of people that lost jobs were absorbed in the agricultural sector. But that increases and exerts pressure on the natural resources, soil erosion, land degradation, climate change crisis. So we need a program or a stimulus package. I know the head of private sector referred to the grand economic plan, which I don't see. And maybe if it exists, the minister will tell us. I have not yet heard of our grand economic plan beyond the announcement of opening the economy. Other countries have the Build Back Better, they have, I mean, a lot of things have gone wrong, like the barometer report read by the private sector, where you have 70% problematic issues in the private sector. And private sector is the engine of our economic growth. So when you have 70% problems in the private sector, how are you addressing them in order to open the economy beyond a mere statement and make the economy work for the people, for the government, and everybody? So we need to come up with this grand plan, with instruments that could help all actors overcome the cost barrier, adaptation challenges as we open up. And this is what I'm not seeing.
Okay, Honorable Henry, do you have this grand plan?
There have been a number of measures since we got into this crisis. One of them was what he talked about, the stimulus package for which we passed through UDB, Microfinance Support Center, Myoga funding has been enhanced. We have the business recovery program, the 200 billion. We are now going into parish development model, etc., etc. So to say that, I don't know what Sarah would like to see the plan like, but for sure, if we send 100 million in every parish, we shall bring everybody, every Ugandan will come into what we call the money economy. And that is our goal as a government.
But you're not sending 100 billion to every parish.
We are sending 30 million.
You are sending, isn't it 46?
No.
45 million shillings?
For the parish model?
Yes.
No. In the...
For every parish?
30 million.
Can I give you information, please?
Please.
In the next financial year, 2022-2023, we shall send 100 million per parish.
100 million?
Yes.
Okay.
What you are seeing now are the preparatory activities, but the mass implementation of the parish development model will be next financial year, and we are sending 100 million for each parish. What is our objective here? We want to eliminate this partial economy, which most of our people keep talking about, including the World Bank and the IMF, which you are quoting, for us, our goal as government, we want to see every Ugandan. We want to reduce the least bystanders. Many people who are not doing anything, we want to try as much as possible to bring every Ugandan into a money economy. And we think the best strategy is this one. This not being the case for everybody, there are also interventions we think we should make in terms of supporting light manufacturing, where we have a multiplier effect on jobs. People have lost jobs. We think we should bring back these jobs. And how do we do this? Support light manufacturing, especially agro-processing in the areas of agro-processing. Because if you are telling people, increase productivity and production, especially through agriculture, we must make efforts for value addition. We think we should invest money here. We think in the ICT sector, the digital transformation, we think we should make interventions here, etc., etc. So therefore, to say that there are no efforts, this is absolutely not true. Our budgets going forward will address most of the challenges which have been brought about by COVID, and not forgetting that we have our NDP3 long-term goals, and also the Vision 2040.
Okay.
Therefore, I want to encourage the viewers out there that we pick interest in the strategic interventions government is making in the budget, in as far as building and growing this economy is concerned.
Okay, I know that Mapenduzi is itching to respond, Sarah is itching. I had wanted to bring in the gentleman from the extreme left.
Let me just in 1 minute.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I want to agree with the Honorable Minister that a lot of efforts have been made. And that's commendable.
But
what looks a bit absurd is when people, even after this difficult period, the COVID period, when people still want to think the way they used to think in 2019 before COVID.
Which is that way?
You see, the Honorable Minister is talking about the parish model. You know, Honorable Minister, we have had several programs. But what is so sad is that you people who take decisions at executive level either don't want to learn or you just refuse to listen. Because Imyoga, a very beautiful idea, money sent down. I'm sure when we went out, you know what happened. The reports came. We have had, I don't want to name them.
What happened? The person, my viewer out there does not actually know what happened. You MPs know.
You see, talking about sending money to the parish is not a bad idea. But you see, if we are going to send money to the parish, first we need to build systems that work, where money is not abused, where people do not manipulate systems and they use the money the other way. And the people intended to get this money fail to receive it. Secondly, we also need to be logical. Like, I have repeatedly heard people talk about this parish model, parish model, parish. We have continuously said that the idea of sending money to the parish is not a bad one. But if you are going to tell us that you are sending 100 million shilling to the parish, the local man and woman is not going to see that 100 million.
Why not?
Because, you know, I was part of the local government. I know this pressure.
Why won't they see it?
I'm coming to that point. First,
You know, you asked for 1 minute.
Thank you, but you're also putting more questions, so it keeps on extending. Yeah, you know,
that's a good one.
First, you put money, a lot of money goes to administrative cost.
Yeah.
Secondly, even when you talk about 100 million for a parish, the parishes are not necessarily the same, geographically, in terms of population, in terms of even setting. You are not going to treat a parish in Gulu City, say Kasubi Parish, the same way you are going to treat a parish in Agago or in Chamunga, in Bushenyi. And the parishes, the economic activities are different. And so these ideas of sending money to the parishes or villages should be based on a well, you know, a carefully analyzed intervention that fits it should fit the respective situation, not just using a blanket kind of, you know, analysis and saying, okay, we are going to turn around things by sending 100 million per parish. And I think that way of thinking should really change.
Okay, that's an interesting one. Honorable, do you want to respond, or I first bring in your colleagues to weigh in? Okay, then you respond, including Sarah, because Sarah, I will want, after Honorable Mara and Stephen, I will want you to look at to explain to us what you meant when you said there is no grand economic plan that you see. Honorable is talking about interventions in different sectors, which he says is something.
It's a grand plan.
Okay, we shall come to the definition of the lack of grand economic planning. But first, Omara, what do you think about the minister's reference to money being put here, money being put there in the Uganda Development Corporation, or Development Bank, and in both microfinance as well? Are those interventions worth calling grand? What is supposed to be grand? How much should grand be? How grand should the grand be? That's for me what I am interested
Charles,
in terms of money,
yeah.
In terms of money, in terms of the economy,
yeah.
Being revived.
Thank you, Charles. And let me pick it up from where the minister left. I think what is important is a complete reset and to think differently from the way we have been doing things. And first, let me thank the president really for reopening the economy. Because if this was United States, Clinton won an election with Al Gore on the issue that isn't the economy stupid. That was the thing. The economy is everything. If you mismanage the economy, everything collapses. So let me start that way. Now, the most important thing, Charles, which has really plummeted this economy, is actually what we call consumer spending. The money in the pockets of the people. Because every time we wake up, we go and buy something. The manufacturers produce goods and they expect the consumers to buy. Now, if the consumers don't have money in their pockets, we are in trouble. So we must then create that aggregate demand. Now, a few issues, and as I mentioned before, that this actually needs a collaborative approach. And it really needs some people to sit down and think. It's about thinking and coming up with something different that will actually step change things as we see it. And one of the things also I want to thank the president about is signing the NSSF bill. And I want to make a comment there. Because that bill would allow the savers, the individuals, to have access, this mid-access fund, up to 1 trillion shillings. The figure is around 902 billion shillings, but that is 1 trillion. Now, you release that money into the public. Public will have money in their pockets, and they will be able to spend. That one increases the velocity of circulation of money and creates a growth in the economy. The second one, Mr. Minister, is this animal that we had a debate around with Dr. Ramadan called domestic arrears. Now, that figure is 4 trillion. It's a lot of money. And what Dr. Ramadan said they have done is that they have verified, the Auditor General have verified 1.6 trillion. Now, if we are going to have a stimulus package plan to resuscitate the economy, to increase the consumer demand, consumer spending and that aggregate demand, we should have a short lifespan in our budget to make that money available to the public. So which means we actually have a budget reset. We should not think the way we have been thinking, oh, Minister of Agriculture, that money, oh, this one. We need to go and say, Mr. Minister, how much money do we have? Because in the budget plan which he presented to Parliament, his figure is 43 trillion. Now, out of this 43 trillion, how are we going to cut this thing to really restart this economy? It should not be budget as usual. So for me, my position is, if you pay the people who have provided services to government, you pay their money in 2 years, because even where the minister has made a budget proposal, they are putting 200 billion shillings, even on this 1.6 trillion, 200 billion shillings every financial year. So how long will it take you to pay what is verified? You do the math.
That's 8 years already.
8 years.
Of the verified.
Of the verified. You can't do that. You should be able to box this thing, because we are talking about the kind of Marshall Plan that Stephen talked about. Give them that money, let us restart, because the manufacturers also have learned that we cannot rely on imported items all our lives, because now this the COVID-19 viruses are changing form all the time. Now we need to manufacture. This boo-boo must be promoted here. So we must manufacture things here. And this NSSF bill, by the way, provides a lot of opportunities beyond the midterm access. Now it allows any Ugandan actually to save. What we need is long-term money. The NSSF fund is actually 16 trillion shillings. That fund is huge. In other economies, they use that money for development purposes.
But it is not only in our economy. It is spread all over.
Yeah, it's spread all over. So now, if we can generate resources domestically, we would be able to have access to our own funds. And I will come to this animal of debt, which is my next point. We were managing, Uganda actually, a credit to the gentleman in the Ministry of Finance. Before COVID, Uganda's debt was one of the best managed in the East African region. Because in 2019, our debt to GDP ratio was at 35.9%. 2020, we moved to 40.8%. Now, his projection is that the figure for 2022 will be 54%. We even actually surpass the target for the Charter of Fiscal Responsibility. Now, what does that word mean? And this debt we have accumulated them.
No, before I got the projection, what is the actual now?
You will tell us.
46.9.
Okay, so that number has been a point of contention. We will come back to that. Now,
at what point are we going to get consensus on it?
You know, their figures, I always disagree with their figures, because when he came to us, he had a different figure. But
Honorable Minister, briefly,
yes.
The State of the Economy report by Bank of Uganda puts our debt ratio at 52.6%.
Yeah.
So who should we believe?
Believe Bank of Uganda.
Really?
Believe Bank of Uganda. Believe Bank of Uganda and me. And me. So Charles, if you look at the debt that we have accumulated, and I'm not against borrowing money, this debt we have, in our strategic plan, we actually wanted to build road infrastructures and oil infrastructures, and we have spent quite substantial amounts there. The only unfortunate thing is that the oil has taken very long to come out. It's 10 years now. Even the president is not amused. 10 years since we have been talking about this thing. We should have actually extracted this oil. And so if you borrow money and you have an investment plan, there must be quick return on that investment.
Okay. I am going to just interrupt you there. After the break, I will bring in the issue of the debt and bring in Stephen, but I want us to first go for a break, because even that break is business. So I need to first transact. Let's break now.
Everyone deserves more this festive season, which is why MTN Momo is giving you more Secu points on your MTN Momo withdrawals at agent locations. Get 150 Secu points for every 1,000 shillings spent in withdrawal fees. More Secu points means you get more free minutes, more free MBs, more free SMSs, and more free Momo Pay shopping. To use your Secu points, dial *141#.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
It's the 2021 Total Energies Africa Cup of Nations. Live, free, and exclusive to your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Honorable Paul Omara.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. I was...
Just 1 minute so that I go to Stephen.
Yeah, so as a stimulus package, domestic arrears should be paid. That 4 trillion shillings should be reconciled, and we give it a shorter period to repay it. The second one is that many traders lost money in South Sudan. Some of the members of my constituency, lost a lot of money, hundreds of millions of shillings.
And they have been paid?
No, some of them have not been paid. So
the payment has been very selective.
Very selective. So we need to, Honorable Minister, I will be coming back to you on that in a separate conversation. We need to make sure that we package these things so that those people are paid. A key item which actually would help us with debt is domestic revenue generation. That has been something which has not moved. URA has remained at 19 trillion shillings. And the Honorable Minister's budget, the budget framework paper, is reading 43 trillion. Where do we get the rest of the money? We can't keep borrowing our neck until our necks are cut off. We must find a way of generating domestic resource.
Okay.
The other one, Charles, which is my last point, is I want to agree with the Minister on the Parish model. If we can execute the Parish model effectively, efficiently, without corruption, that actually would be a game changer. And then
did you say without corruption?
Without corruption.
Is that possible in this country now?
I just don't know. The Honorable Minister is here.
Just have to be
and we must link those activities to the private sector. Now, if you just go and produce foie without the market, it will still have done nothing. So the business models and the commodities involved at the parish level must be agreed by the community themselves, and we must link that to the private sector so that the private sector is able to offtake those items. That is when you now have a meaningful economic activity taking place.
Okay, Stephen, as the private sector, domestic arrears being so huge, 4.6%, trillion shillings, or whatever the amount right now, that spread, doesn't it worry you, the spread of repayment? Doesn't it lock down money that you guys are supposed to have in the hand? What are you doing about negotiating with government to say, give it as a lump sum, pay it off, so that then there is money with the banks, there is money in private hands with the investors to kickstart or jump the economy?
Thank you, Charles. That's a very, very pertinent issue. I'll go back to the barometer.
Yeah.
Again, this is scientific, evidence-based research that we've done with the private sector. And this should really help at the policy and the strategic level as we go along. I'll start with number one. I said earlier that the biggest challenge was, of course, the effects of COVID, which has been effectively discussed here. Number two was the challenge of the current tax regime. The tax regime needs to be harmonized, but there needs to be some listening ear or empathy. We're not saying we want to get rid of taxes, absolutely not. We're saying, given the current situation, can there be some empathy? Some lower taxes, which will then create a stimulus within the business environment, and then the volumes will grow. And we'll come to that for a second. The third issue, Paul mentioned it, Honorable Omara, the element of local purchasing capacity. When people are not spending money, it's like oxygen. Yeah. If you don't breathe, it's in, out. Yeah. So we need to get that element out in the context of ensuring that people have something to purchase. And that comes, of course, with the stimulus package that we are trying to advocate. I'll come to that for a second. The fourth issue in our barometer was the issue of corruption. Corruption at all levels, including the private sector, by the way. Now, in the last 2 years, Charles, we've had an influx of smuggling into the country. Illicit trade. On a daily basis, we are discussing, and you know this, Honorable Musasizi, that, for instance, BAT is about to close. They have been following very strict standard operating procedures. But there's a huge influx of cigarettes coming into the country, of tobacco. And they are hitting. And these guys are passing through porous borders. One, there's a laxity on the part of systems. But secondly, because of the low purchasing capacity, this illicit trade is finding it very cheap to come into the pockets, of the traders, and etc. on that one. Of course, there is the issue of the cost of credit and the lack of it. When you have very, very expensive credit or lack of access, you have two challenges. One, you actually fall prey to the money lending regime because of the lack of procedures and easy access. But then you have that cumulative effect of having too much money stuck in unpaid portfolios, and that is hurting businesses. Then I come to the cardinal issue, which came out number 6 on our 8-point barometer, which is the issue of delayed payments, or domestic areas for that matter. Domestic areas are locking up capital. In the absence of that payment, and a lot of that money, by the way, has been borrowed from the banks. So one, the banks are demanding for money. The government has not paid so you are not even able to resuscitate the business. Unfortunately, then you fall prey to foreign companies which have access to big financial resources, and they block you out. But then that ties in the other element, which is on the issue of local content, the need for policy intervention. We have been talking of bubu, and there's an urgent need for Ugandans to be given preferential treatment. Ugandan companies. If you were to draw a pyramid, you have the micro companies, you have the small, you have the medium enterprises. We need a policy intervention where Ugandans should be given a ring-fenced option to be able to supply government, so that we create that stimulus for production, for job creation, for business development, and as much as possible, so that we can expand the economy. And that is critical, and that's why on a daily basis, I'm actually working always in the Honorable Musasi's office to discuss some of those interventions. And then, of course, from the manufacturing side, the high cost of raw materials. These last 2 years have actually shown that we are really dependent on each other. We have a national logistics platform and a logistics sector. A lot of our exports go, but there are no containers. The challenges of transport, the non-tariff barriers between Kampala and Mombasa are over 100 roadblocks. And all this impact of the, kitu kidogo along the way impacts the way you do business. So it's not just a one challenge, it's a much, much bigger. So this barometer we have compiled clearly gives you the challenge that the private sector is going through. And therefore, we need a Marshall Plan, and not just grant, but Marshall Plan.
Beyond grant plan.
And for me, I think that beyond, and it's something we can discuss.
Yeah.
And I agree, of course, I know the challenges Honorable Mzaz is going through, but they are surmountable. We can actually overcome them if we came together and sat. And I'll give you what some countries have done. In our barometer, each sector, from construction to human resource to oil and gas. Right now, 40% of our exports are gold, if you like. If we had a strategic intervention in our oil and gas, minerals and extractive sector, and we have a fantastic and vibrant oil and gas sector at PSFU, we have very good answers. And that's why I think that the need for constant dialogue and discussion, we have answers. We have very, very good answers.
And for the questions are known?
Yes.
Yes. And so the thing is that we need each other. We badly need each other. We need government to create an enabling environment. Private sector is the engine of growth. Yeah. It is private sector driven.
Yeah.
So that need for dialogue is critical in the context that even by the way you have health challenges, private sector will come in and help. You saw what we did. We were able to mobilize money for food. We were able to mobilize money for logistics. In these last 6 weeks, the private sector has been at the forefront of vaccination.
Yeah.
We are using our factories, our shops, our business centers for ensuring that we have mass vaccinations. We're using our private radio stations to do publicity. We are putting in our resources in this discussion. Right now, this morning, we spent the whole day discussing booster shots, private sector. So the answers are here. So this discussion is important and critical for the need for us to move this country forward. And me, I'm really excited that at least now the economy is going to open. The night economy is massive. We badly need that place to open. We will take responsibility in ensuring that our own workers, our own people are vaccinated. We have SOPs in our places of work. We must open the economy urgently. Otherwise, we are suffocating.
Okay, so maybe let me come straight to Sarah from that. What the private sector guys are suggesting, among them ring fencing certain services, is that something that is plausible? Is in your view, Sarah, is that something that doesn't it go against certain protocols, certain agreements, even in the region, at a regional level? I saw the president directing, I think, on printing, that where New Vision, for example, and other Ugandan printers have built capacity, they should be given the business. Some people are saying, no, that's not proper. Is that something that can help rejuvenate the economy if we go that direction?
The proposals from private sector, in my view, are spot on. And they are scientifically founded through a survey, evidence-based. So we have data, we have findings, and as a country, there is no need to beat about the bush. The gazetting of jobs, if properly done with legal harmonization, creating exceptions for where you have unequivocal capacity, is okay. But the issue of directing contrary to laws, for example, the procurement laws like that, what backfired on construction of schools and by UPDF, you have an law governing procurement of services. Then you wake up in the night and issue a directive. Are we a country governed by laws or decrees? So that is where there is uncoordinated movement of troops, in my view. If you are a country governed by coded law, even if you have such a plan and you think it is useful for capacity building and especially local capacity building, how do you go about it? You don't wake up and dream. We have been there as a country when one of the presidents dreamt and expelled the Asians through a dream. We work under coded law. So whatever is being done Laws must be reviewed and make sure there is harmony. Otherwise, you will be faced with all sorts of suits, with people taking government to court and getting lots of money in compensation. That's one point. Second, on the grand or Marshall Plan, whatever name we can call it.
That animal.
That animal.
We are back to it, yes.
We cannot have sustainable, resilient recovery of an economy without fiscal firepower, which is economic activity and jobs. The barometer indicators are clear on rejuvenating economic activity in this country. We also need to add protection of jobs. We have had great losses of jobs. When you lose jobs, you lose a big input in the tax cycle. You have nobody to tax. You have no money to put in taxes. You have no money to generate. We faced a revenue shortfall of 200 billion as a country. So among the plans, we should be able to discuss and say, how do we recover the revenue shortfall? Okay, it is more. I was missing 1 Thank you very much. So what is the plan for recovering that money? How many people lost jobs? How do we recover those jobs? Because once you do not have jobs, then you have no money to put in your tax and service delivery cycle for budget and service delivery as a country. So that's why we need this plan. You might have 100,000 for Emyoga. Charles, it's important for viewers to know that 100,000 can only help you get 4 doses of malaria in village clinics.
In village clinics, malaria doses are free.
Those are government clinics or private?
We have a healthcare system which starts from LC to Parish. Parish, sub-county, district.
Okay, let me talk about private clinics.
I was in
okay,
the
because I don't want to
but
know.
I was in my village. I was in my village. Honorable, I was in my village last week,
we all come from
and I
villages,
got attacked by malaria. And I was advised to get, the doctor advised me get Coatem, a full dose, and some Panadol, and it was about 15,000.
So how did you miss the free clinic he's talking about?
Were you charged at your health center 3?
I left the health center 3 for other people to go to.
So,
Honorable, we are coming from a medical crisis where even you
it's
could not pay
optional. If you want to pay, you go to the private clinic.
I think Sarah is talking about
pay,
when you want to pay.
I'm talking about access.
To the government health care center.
Please. Anyway, back to
Sarah has
the
taken
point.
So many years.
No, please. I left my village towards the new year. So don't please. Let's focus on the debate. When it comes, we survived inflation during lockdowns, mainly because of the food crop, raw food crop inflation that was cushioned by bumper harvests, but also raw domestic and regional markets because of challenges of transport and movement. But now that we are opening up, even in this plan, we need to factor issues of inflation. Food prices, people are going to supply schools. But the cost of maize is going to rise. Who is going to make these plans for the country? When you are telling us about 100,000 from your Honorable Minister.
Well, can I get some clarification? Where is she picking 100,000 for Emyoga from?
No, maybe just
the one going to be given to teachers.
No. That is that's not for Emyoga.
Okay, that's the one I'm referring to now. The one for 300,000 teachers, 100,000.
No, that one is like a package we are giving them to compensate them for what
Under
they have
what
lost.
program?
During this time they have not been working.
You see,
we assume they needed to they need to eat.
A stimulus.
It's like a stimulus.
100,000.
Like a meal.
You know, Charles,
I thought I was coming in next before you.
Yeah, you will. You just a few seconds.
Are you informed? You're giving him some information?
Probably.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I needed to make just a very quick clarification. I may sound to be not very much in support of the parish model, but that's not the case.
No, I don't think
And
so. I don't
that's-
think
that's
you
fine.
sound so.
But I wanted to make a point.
I think
And
what you are pushing for is that there should be substantial contribution put in that, because my understanding of your argument is that put in place systems that ensure accountability, ensure that this money goes to the people and people's hands, people's pockets, so that then they can get value out of it, and ensure that you define properly the geographical areas, that they're not the same. For
But
me,
the
that's
other
how I
thing, the other
understand.
thing I will add, you put it very correctly. The other thing I will add, which the Honourable Minister needs to probably consider, is that we should not mix things, because when we are talking about dealing with the impact of COVID and trying to sustainably look at how we can manage our economy, I think the ideas like parish development model and so on are good ideas, but we should be a lot more careful in understanding how much impact we have had if we are interested in designing interventions that can deal with what we have been through and sustainably begin to reshape the economy. And so I still insist that, you know, sometimes we want to try to appear to be doing something. And as we try to be doing something, we then forget to go deeper in actually first starting by analyzing what exactly we need to do, so that whatever intervention we come up with fits within the context or within the situation. Something very important that we need to consider, even before COVID came, our people were already living in poverty, the greater part of the country. And I'll tell you this, Honourable Minister, based on studies and reports, including the most recent one by UBOS. Actually, COVID has made it worse. And so I would want to see us being a lot more committed, first, in dealing with the question of poverty that is skyrocketing throughout the country. How do we empower the citizens to have resources that they can use to become a lot more productive, so they can begin to contribute to the economy? That is very key. You were giving, I think probably this was during the commercial break, you were giving an example of certain groups that have accessed imyoga money. And I want to agree with you that the cases are different. In some places, there are areas where people are doing well, productive. You know, they are very productive. And when government puts money so they can borrow and generate and pay back, they're doing so well. But there are places, a place like Karamoja. Let me use Karamoja as an example. We are dealing with two things. We are dealing with a place that is extremely disadvantaged, but also we have to attend to the impact of COVID on top of the area being disadvantaged. So I would want us, and when we say we are going to send 100,000, 100 million to a parish in Nabilatuk or a parish in another, here we are dealing with an environment that needs a much deeper understanding, a lot more than just sitting and saying, okay, we are having this kind of plan. So for me, starting to look at how we can sustainably sustain the economy, recover and all that, we should also not ignore those underlying challenges that we have had that have created even a lot more difficult environment for places that are known to have been disadvantaged. A place like Lao sub-region, a place like Acholi sub-region, a place like, you go to Bukedi, you go to... So I would want to hear you talking differently. How do you begin to strategically target the private sector in those areas? Because like the private sector boss is talking here, is giving a general picture. But when you go to those regions, even when you talk about the stimulus package, there was a time, I think government decided to put some money to support businesses that suffered from the impact of COVID. Talk about the companies that received those monies. When you move in the greater north, you are not likely to find even one business that received that money. And therefore, it then makes everything being done selectively, and we are not being fair, and we try to appear to be doing something. That's the main thing I'm trying to pursue.
Honorable, can you respond to the issue of equity as is raised here?
You see, we are discussing the economy in the context. There's what we call political economy, which I want to believe he is talking about.
Yeah.
And also there is this other economy, which
and then
Stephen,
the economic economy,
which Stephen is focusing on. But this being the case, I want to come back to the parish development model.
Which is part of the political economy.
If we say we are sending money to every parish in Uganda, this, honestly speaking, covers everybody, irrespective of status, irrespective of where you are. You can benefit from the parish development model if we kickstart it. If we say every constituency must have a constituency, a myoga arrangement called the circle, there is no place in this country where we don't have a constituency. If we are sending monies to the constituency, every Ugandan gets taken care of. He raised an issue on the preparedness, levels of preparedness to kickstart the parish development model. I want to say that we have developed guidelines. Actually, we presented these guidelines before Parliament when we were closing for Christmas. When we come back, Parliament will have an opportunity to have an extensive debate about these guidelines, and I'm sure the outcome of this debate will enhance our strategies further. We have put structures in place. In every parish now, we have a parish chief who is going to be the accounting officer for the parish development model. We have established structures, a committee chaired by the LC2 chairperson, and who is going to be working with the parish chief. We have prioritized awareness creation and sensitization. The districts are busy out there training people about what shall be required in the parish development model. We have come up with pillars, the 7 pillars, among which is the financial inclusion. Therefore, I want to allay the fears of Honorable Mapenduz and others that this time around, let's be optimistic that this parish development model will turn around the economy of this country, especially for the rural poor. Putting money under UDB to support some sectors. UDB largely supports agro-processing, manufacturing, and human capital development, especially in skills. Let's be honest, we have big companies out there who also need support. By government making an arrangement, UDB now has a portfolio of over 1 trillion Uganda shillings and still growing. This arrangement, if adequately utilized, can help boost the economy in terms of raising the taxes she's talking about, in terms of creating the jobs, which needs to be created, etc., etc. There is Sarah raised an issue on the need for local. Is it Sarah and also from the barometer support to local participation? The PPDA law, which we recently amended, actually that was one of my last assignments as chairperson of the Finance Committee. We provided for reservation clauses, whereby some contracts are strictly for local service providers. And actually, even we provided for gender contracts to be given to women, youth, etc., etc. I want to say that most of our players out there are not aware about some of these opportunities available for them. But if we would adequately, if the private sector can advocate for implementation of some of these reforms, I want to believe that our private sector and our people would actually benefit from them. On unlocking the monies held by government, yes, very good idea. But Honorable Mara, you know your budget is 43 trillion. And this 43 trillion, I have to spread it among the 18, actually now 20, when we added the Judiciary and Parliamentary Commission. The 18 programs, yes, and each program has got to benefit. So we have to ration. But if funds would allow, definitely yes, if you unlocked 4 trillion, it makes a very big impact to the economy.
Where to cut?
Yes. On the debt, Uganda.
Whisper to him here.
Yes, on the debt levels.
Yeah.
On the debt levels, the debate around debt, my personal opinion, which I have held for a very long time, is the question of where the debt is going.
Yeah. Where do you invest it?
The issue is not the 52% which Bank of Uganda is talking about, or the 54% which
projected 2022
Honorable Mara is talking about, or the 46.9 which I'm talking about. The issue should be where is this money being invested?
And can we pay back?
And capacity to pay
yes.
back.
If money is being invested in areas, in sectors which stimulate the economy, so that the economy is able to generate the taxes, then the taxes would minimize the future debt obligations. If the money is being invested in areas for job creation, yes, you should borrow. But that notwithstanding, in 2019, Uganda was doing very well. But when the locusts came, if you may recall, when yes, we borrowed massively to deal with the yes. When the COVID came, we did aggressive borrowing. And this is why we came to the levels where we find ourselves now. But in the medium term, what is our debt sustainability strategy? We think when oil gets out of the ground, we will be able to come back to the minimum levels because we shall reduce what we call our fiscal deficit. He talked about the tax to GDP ratio. We have a domestic revenue mobilization strategy in place, which I am working day and night as a Minister of State for Finance, general duties, to ensure, to see its implementation. Our tax to GDP ratio has stagnated at 13%.
We are still 13%
for many years.
Almost 7 years.
Yes. And we are committed in the medium term. We should take it to at least 16%. And that's why you saw in
Without reviving the economy.
Yes.
Are you going to tax us more?
No. Actually,
That's the grand plan.
Actually,
tax the hell out of us.
Uganda is one of the tax-heavy countries in terms of when you look at the rates we use, like in excise duty. Our excise duty rates, in my opinion, are very, very high. Instead, we should look at mechanisms of bringing reforms which widen the tax base instead of increasing tax rates. And also, we have so many redundant exemptions, which if we would terminate, we would raise more revenue. Then efficiency in tax administration. They would be collected, due taxes are not collected because URA is thin on ground, and also everything now is going into digital. The technology keeps changing. We have recently introduced IFRIS. IFRIS is going to turn around a lot. We have recently introduced scanners in all our borders. We are now able to scan and see what the containers are carrying, etc., etc. All these efforts.
You have decided also to put your men at big supermarkets.
Yes, so all
to check receipts.
Therefore, all these efforts will take us to the desired 16%. And in the long term, we want to see this rise to 20%. And this, by implication, we average at 23%. We collect 13, and we spend 23. So almost the fiscal deficit is about 9.8, close 10%.
9.8.
Yes, and in the long term, if we could increase our tax to GDP ratio to 20%, we would remain with only 3% fiscal deficit, which would be really good.
Brilliant. Honorable Mara, is that convincing?
Charles, I like my colleague here. He's a well-measured and thoughtful guy. So I have to give him credit. Charles, I agree with him that the debt sustainability strategy is in place. But the question is that this debt that we have accumulated over the years, where have we invested the money? Of course, in infrastructures and power and energy and a few other things. And
are those productive enough?
Are they productive enough? Are they generating revenue? And my answer is no. It is long-term. It's a long-term investment. It will generate money after some time. So basically, that's why the revenue collection, Charles, has remained muted. And the question now would be, are there some people who, if the investments we have made within the economy is generating revenue, the question is, where is the money? Are there some people not collecting taxes? Because I'm told there are people outside there who bypass systems and they do nothing about it. So the minister, I think you need to strengthen your tax collections because there's something which is going through the fingers.
The pilferages, a lot of it.
Yeah, and
some of our taxes are indirect taxes.
Yeah, there are people actually that don't pay taxes, and that is some conversation that we are going to have separately. The other one, of course, is redundancy in the tax holidays which has been given. And we did some numbers. Dr. Ramadan disagree. A 5-year period, moratorium, is almost 7 trillion shillings. That money can actually solve his domestic arrears. So the question is then, we need to look at it. Who are these people that have got tax exemptions? How many people are they employing? So you need to have indices to say, we've given you tax exemption, you are supposed to contribute some taxes indirectly or employing our people.
Does Parliament, especially the Finance Committee, Budget Committee, is it the Economy Committee? Yeah. Do those committees have these numbers, these figures, these people?
If they didn't have some of us now, Honorable Henry knows, will begin to ask the questions. And we really want to make sure, because that is an executive role.
And are you going to ask those questions of the Honorable?
Because if you're going to give tax exemptions, then as a measurement tool, you should be able to say, okay, how many companies have we given tax exemption over the last 5 years, and the total amount is this. What is their contribution? Because if I was the president, I would ask the question. We have given all this, we have forfeited this money. What is this guy doing in this country?
But you are an MP, a powerful MP at that.
No.
Why can't you ask? It doesn't have to be only the president.
We are going to
ask
from both sides.
Okay.
You know, we'll ask from this side, and we will whisper to the chief executive.
I want to believe he has been asking so many questions.
And I do, and I'm somehow becoming unpopular, but I will continue to ask the questions.
To who?
To those who fear hard questions. So Charles, the issue of debt is something that we have to manage, and I agree with Henry that over a period of time, our tax to GDP ratio must go up. 13%, if it goes to 16%, that is only when you leverage and control your appetite for debt. And if you go to 20 now, that is where you'll have now, even that would help you to have debt sustainability. Because right now, in your budget framework paper, it is given us a projection of 43 trillion. But still, we are far short of our tax revenue, still at 13%. So which means now, in the next financial year, we have to go for some concessionary loans from IMF, or we get it from domestically. So we're going to continue increasing. That is why my projection, which is actually his projection, that is projection for 2022, the debt to GDP will be at 54. That's not my number, it's Henry's number.
Okay.
With Dr. Ramadan. My last one, Charles, is that we had accumulated this debt and we put them in infrastructure. The question is, are we going to continue with huge infrastructure development, investments, under the circumstances in which we are in? My answer would be, we shouldn't. We should actually now reset the button, and as he has mentioned around Parish model, let's inject the money and begin to, for people now, directly to the people, so that we begin to generate.
Honorable Mara, and I wanted, maybe Henry could respond to that. We are running out of time, but if you could respond very fast. But starting with Honorable Mara, is that even possible, that proposal? Because many of these plans to roll out infrastructure development, roads, for example, if they are phased over periods in a term of, like, if you said Karuma, Pakwach, Nebi, Arua Road should be done 2022 to 2024, and then you are saying now we have to shift and first suspend it, what will the people of that area think?
Most of these roads, the money has already been taken in. It's been signed. So, I believe it's part of what we have now. Like Rekunya Partly Road, Tororo.
In fact, someone is actually asking
it's already there.
Why Honorable Omara is not talking about our road.
And let me say it. And I was going to make that as my last comment.
Yeah.
There's a road from Lira to Kamdini. It's the worst tarmac road in Uganda. It's not even a tarmac road. Anybody who has been there would ask the question, what were we been thinking for all this time? Afande Saleh traveled on that road from 8 o'clock, and he reached Gulo at 1 a.m. And he has never come back. One time he wanted to meet him, he said, meet me at Kona Kamdini. A mamba followed that road and fell off.
The person is called SGO. So let me put the question so that it doesn't sound like I'm creating my own. Yeah. The person is saying, how do you expect people in the sub-region that you represent to recover when they have a niggly problem of enduring the worst road network in the country? For example, the important Lira Kamdini Road has been bad for the past 3 to 5 years. Are you MPs lobbying and advocating effectively, if at all? This is a question to Honorable Paul Omara.
My answer is very simple. That money has already been secured, signed for, is part of the debt we are talking about. The Lira, the Rekunye Apach Lira Kigum Road is taken in. The one of Lira Aloy Abim Moroto is part of what we are talking about. It's now a matter of execution. The issue we are dealing with here is execution.
Okay.
And we took the general and the ED UNRWA to that place. But the question is, why can't they leave the Tororo, Soroti, Lira route? I mean, that yard. And they start from Lira to Kambini, which is actually is part of the Great North Road, by the way. And trailers have now left that road and they are going through some Panya up to Gobi, you know, and destroyed the Maram Road, which was created for the civilians. So that road, Charles, must be done.
Okay.
And those who are responsible, who are listening to us, the people of Lango are not happy because of that road.
Honorable Henry, did you have a response? Maybe, or you will give a response finally. Let the rest now wind up, 1 minute each, and then you will come in, starting with Stephen. Stephen, way forward now on the, you know, the collaboration, the need for collaboration. It has been, you know, stated enough, but way forward now, going, you know, going into the new year proper.
Thank you, Charles. I'll just veer off a bit more. I want to discuss regional issues.
Yeah. East Africa?
East Africa and Africa.
Yeah.
Number one, besides the pandemic issues that we have already seen, the private sector has been a victim of a lot of the policy issues in across the region.
Yeah.
You all know that some sections of our borders with other countries were closed and our businesses lost money. The whole of last year we were higgling between the issue of the aflatoxin, our maize was blocked, our chicken, our eggs. As we speak right now, there is a problem at the border because of a policy issue.
Yes.
Our trucks are not being allowed in and out because of a small issue to do with the COVID testing. Those are things which need to be handled ASAP. We have a challenge of a lot of an influx of rice from a neighboring country, which has a knock-on effect on our farmers.
Yeah.
Until, I think, 2 years ago, I think Ugandans were importing about 100,000 tons of rice. A slight shift in the policy created an avalanche of cheap rice from a neighboring country. As we speak right now, 400,000 tons are entering the country and attracting less than $1 billion shillings on taxes. Our farmers have put out their tools. So those small things of policy interventions are critical right now. I want to thank the President and the government for opening what is, in my view, the best business opportunity in our neighbor, the DRC. The DRC is now the 4th largest population in Africa. After Nigeria, Ethiopia, Egypt, it comes, it's about 105 million people. Massive. 3 flights a week to Kinshasa. Kinshasa is about to overtake Lagos as the largest capital city in terms of population. Fantastic prospect. I'm glad they are beginning to put roads across the border, which inadvertently open huge opportunities for us. Now, it's in my view that we badly need to open this economy quickly. And we can really come in with some very, very strategic interventions. One, open the night economy. I will tell you, this economy will begin to cascade positively. 2, please listen to the private sector. We have ideas, we have goodwill, we pay taxes, we want some, the word is one, empathy. Let's have a meaningful discussion. We have been involved in budget framework papers, and you know, Honorable Musasi, and I want to thank you when you were chairman of the economy. There are some things we sent. There are some very good, easy interventions, and we have these ideas. Right now, we were in Dar es Salaam about 3 weeks ago for the East African crude oil pipeline conference. It was jointly organized by the Private Sector Foundation of Uganda and the Tanzanian Private Sector Foundation. We have same ideas. We have same interests. We have goodwill. We want to employ people. Business opportunities are going to come. There's anywhere between 15 to 20 billion dollars available for private sector intervention. We have skilled our manpower. We are working with government and international organizations to create special purpose vehicles for skills development facilities. So therefore, my appeal in the next 6 months, even as we get close to the final budget framework papers and obviously the budget, that we have a set of strategies as private sector that will help to stimulate this economy. And my view is the need for us to start to use some of this evidence-based. You cannot manage what you can't measure.
Yeah.
We have solutions, we have answers, we may have made some mistakes, but some intervention on policy needs to be done, especially to manage the issue of illicit trade. Our business people are hurting because porous borders are allowing in a lot of illicit trade, and again, we have evidence which we can support. So I'm very positive. I'm very, very positive that once we can come together with a concerted strategy, there's going to be a breakthrough for the economy.
Good. We need to wind up. Honorable Mapinduzi, now I'm going to give you just 30 seconds to wind up.
Thank you very much, sir. Just as I started, the starting point would be thinking far. How do we, in the middle of all these efforts, make sure we don't have a repeat, we don't go back?
Okay.
And the solution lies with the aspect of vaccination. We need to do more, and I think we need to invest in that. Secondly, as we begin to improve, as the economy keeps on improving, I think we also need to accept the fact that there are many of those players in the private sector who may not necessarily, even if we reopened, may not necessarily have the capacity to go back on their feet again. And strategically, government needs to continuously consider providing more resources. The package you're talking about, it's a good idea, but I think we need to do a lot more. Just like we discussed the other time, schools are opening. I mean, starting next week. Many schools are not going to reopen. Why? Because either they have, they have failed to pay loans, or they have decided to. So it's challenging, and we need to continuously keep on assessing the situation, providing whatever is needed to support the private sector the more. So we can, but all in all, the signs are good. What is left is having constant commitment, but also honesty in the way we do things. And avoiding unnecessary, wasteful expenditures and corruption and all that. We need to continue talking about that.
Thank you. Sarah.
Resilience amidst the pandemic must be for both lives and livelihood. We have a mismatch between economic priorities and what the politicians are doing. And there's a lot of evidence to that effect in this country. We have politicians who think in terms of political survival, in terms of voter needs, forgetting that the engine of economic growth is private sector, and they must listen to the business community.
Is any of those you are talking about amongst these three? We have three politicians.
Yes. Yeah, I'm talking so that they all listen.
For them to take the message to the rest.
Yes.
Not that they are part of those you are.
I have listened.
Yes, we must reach a situation
where
we listen to the business people in order to make sure the economy is functional and works for everybody, including the politicians.
Okay.
The programs in place must be reworked, overhauled, to create real resilient recovery of the economy in Uganda.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister, I'm just going to give you 1 minute to wind up. Someone called Dennis said, this you must read, Charles, that it pains so much that Karuma Power is not going to go through West Nile. It hurts. And then There is Captain Gad thinks we are listening, says we are watching. He says, good evening, Ndugu Charles, and a very happy, prosperous new year. I'm very impressed with the quality of debate and the excellent moderation. Thank you, Captain Gad. Parish development model should be a great idea, but one often voiced complaint about government programs is the speed with which we move to put money in the hands of people not used to handling money. Honorable, you can now give your way forward and with all these comments.
Okay, thank you, Charles. I must say I'm also impressed. I'm also impressed by this debate. Being my first time here, I must commend you and also appreciate the panelists. They have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and a lot of vigor to see the economy moving forward. There are two things. I think there is an issue which was raised on whether we should stop some projects like roads in order to provide money for
livelihood,
for livelihood and other things. For us, we think we can't stop investment in infrastructure. Infrastructure, first of all, is a facilitating factor.
It's an enabler.
It may not bring in money directly, but it facilitates production. Once we go to real and produce, these goods must be transported to Kampala and other markets. And that's why the people of Rango are crying. I used that road recently around September.
Yes. How did you feel?
I used it to take 30 minutes on that road around 2008 when I was working in those areas, Padera and other areas. But now it took me more than 2 hours.
Yes.
Yes. But the issue there is, I think, the back and forth between the funder and the government of Uganda. Otherwise, the funding for that road was earmarked long ago. So financing infrastructure is not going to stop. The issue which we are trying to look at is the mode of financing. You are likely to see us going more into what we call pre-financing. You build the road, we pay you after 5 years. Build the road now, we pay you after 5 years. So that money now can be used to invest in activities which bring money into our households. We are also looking at, there is something it's because of time I may not go into detail, but also the cost of these loans. Some of the loans are very expensive.
Very expensive.
Very expensive. So we are also analyzing. Actually, we shall come up with a public investment strategy. I'm reviewing it together with the team at the ministry. So with the goal of earmarking some projects to be financed, for instance, by our own money, if it is not going to bring income, to be financed by a loan, either external or internal, depending on what the project is intended to achieve, or we recommend a project to be financed by donors, especially through off-budget. So these are the mechanisms we are looking at. But to say that we stop financing road projects and other projects like Karuma, like there is an issue in in West Nile, over power and others. No, we can't stop. What we just have to do is to ration, say this money is earmarked for this, that, like that, like that. Finally, parish development model. This is the new year. Our focus, main focus as NRM government is massive. We are going massive implementation of the parish development model. And I want to appeal to all the viewers out there to embrace the parish model as a strategy to bring the 39% who are still out of the money economy into the money economy. Lastly, private sector definitely is the engine of economic growth. We cannot grow this economy without having private sector at the center. And as Minister of Finance and Government, I'm sure Stephen knows how passionate I have been previously in supporting the private sector, and now we shall have to continue working with them to see how best we can develop this economy together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable, the Honorable Henry Musasizi, Rubanda County East MP, Minister of State General Duties from Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Thank you very much, Honorable Paul Omara, Otuke County MP and a member of the Budget Committee. You and Stephen, I must put you on alert that you have indicated that there must be a discussion on the oil. And this year is when we need to now start having that robust discussion. I promise that within this month, probably in the next 2-3 programs, I'm going to invite you again so that we get someone from the oil company and we bring them and put them on the chopping board here so that we discuss the oil. Yep. And see whether the prospects are still there. 10 years since the promise, and the oil is not coming out. We need to ask questions why people are being paid.
Bring oil out in 2025.
2025?
Yes.
But when you started, you had said...
2020.
2020, when you promised, looked so far. Now 2025, you think 2025 is far. It's just about 36 months or 48 months from now. Yeah. But thank you, Stephen Asimwe. From the Private Sector Foundation Uganda. Thank you very much. Pleasure. Thanks a lot to Sarah Birete of Center for Constitutional Governance. Thanks a lot to Ojara Mapenduzi from Laibi Bardege constituency. And it's a good year that has started, and we are all optimistic that it will be a good one. Of course, it has started on, with a lot of health issues, and as we already discussed, we will be having soon a discussion on the progress in the fight against COVID and what is being done, all the challenges around it. We cannot run away from the pandemic because it's still here with us, and so we must discuss it. But on the side of caution, ensure that you take care. The hospitals are, and health centers are really full to capacity. They are saying it is mild, the Omicron strain right now, but I can guarantee you there are many people who are still suffering from the pain of it. So don't take anything lightly or for granted. Just ensure you take care of yourself, follow the SOPs, and if possible, you don't need to indulge in groupings and all that. Only do it when you must. From the team here, we want to say happy New Year to all of you, and enjoy your life, but ensure that next week when life opens, when the economy reopens, ensure that you safeguard your life. Bye-bye. Until then, God bless you all.
Everyone deserves more this festive season, which is why MTN Momo is giving you more Secu points on your MTN Momo withdrawals at agent locations. Get 150 Secu points for every 1,000 shillings spent in withdrawal fees. More Secu points means you get more free minutes, more free MBs, more free SMSs, and more free Momo Pay shopping. To use your Thank You points, dial *141#.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Join us from Monday to Friday for Good Morning Uganda with me, Felix Mkondo, Robert Chirabo,
Molen Kenyana,
Ruben Mpimba, with all the morning's essentials,
including the very latest in news, traffic,
weather and sports.
Hope you'll be setting your alarms, cause we are
looking forward to seeing you then.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
And trying to prevent violence. They even snatch sticks and batons from the guys nearby so that they do not attack anyone. There is a heavy security presence in the city, police and military. They're trying to move the crowd away from the square, but it's not working. The crowd retreats, then advances. Police are shooting rubber bullets, stun